I just want to introduce myself. My name's Alex. I'll be the one doing the interview with you
Okay,
today.
cool. Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and get started. How's it
All
going?
right. Oh, it's going pretty good. Just got off of work, so trying to decompress a little bit, but rolling
Mhm.
into this and kind of keeping the party going, I guess. So
That's the good way to be about it. I know my favorite part of the day is getting off of work.
yeah, yeah. I just started a new job, so it's kind of crazy, but I don't have a lot of responsibility yet because they understand that I'm pretty new. So it's
Mhm.
kind of figuring out a lot of the new systems and stuff like that. So anyway.
Okay. So I have to ask, how did the band form?
Uh, it's kind of a long story to be honest with you. I was in a band called Radon Kong, which was also a two-piece. Uh, I my good friend Dave Leonard was playing drums at the time, and at some point in time, Dave decided he didn't really want to play drums anymore, and he wanted to move to bass. And we were thinking, well, who could we get to play drums? And Greg Travassis, who's the drummer in Radiant Knife now, was
Mhm.
known around Lafayette for being a pretty good drummer, and he had just moved back from Portland. So, so we hit him up with an email, and he was down for it and everything. But long story short, it never came to fruition. Uh, we kept on with Radon Kong as a two-piece at that time, but then slowly but surely, Radon Kong kind of faded out, and I still wanted to continue that type of music, so to speak. So I reached out to Greg again, and that's when we started. And believe it or not, that was in 2016, I think. So we've been together for a long time.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
quite a few years.
yeah, it is. And we're kind of a little bit older, and I have a family. I can't really tour too much or anything like that. So, although I always want to be creative and continue to make art for the rest of my life, so Greg's a good person to do it with. So we don't really get out too much, but we just really like to focus on making records, and that's just what we do. So yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
how did you come up with the name for the band?
Well, it kind of always starts with any band that I've ever been in, just a list of things that we think sound cool, or
Hmm.
and I can't remember what the list was, and I don't even know if Radiant Knife was really one on the list that I thought was cool, but it was definitely in that list. And it was kind of boiled down to maybe like 5 or 6 names. Um, and I think we just settled on that. Coincidentally, it starts with the same letters as my previous band, Radon Kong. So RK. So that was kind of weird, but sometimes people come up and say, did you know that? And I was like, that wasn't intentional. But so anyway, I thought it had a nice ring to it. Um, I think it kind of fits our sound a little bit. And it's not changing now. So that's our name for sure. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting how it's like a coincidental accident, how the letters are the same.
Yeah, yeah. I like the two-word names. That's one of the hardest things to do is come up with a band name, because you don't want it to be something stupid down the road and you look back, like, why the hell did I call it that? But I think I can look back on it and say, hey, I'm cool with that name. It's a good name, I think. So
I
yeah,
think so too. I really like the name of your band. So
cool. Thank you.
so I have to ask, how long did the album take to make?
Well, to be honest, a pretty long time. Uh, when I was young, we would go record at studios in my previous projects, and usually we try to knock them out in a weekend. So we
Oh,
record all day Saturday, record all day Sunday. We'd come back the next weekend and do the mixing and the mastering or whatever. Um,
mhm.
but that was because we didn't have any money, and we tried to pack as much as we could in that limited amount of time. But over the years, I've developed a studio that we practice in all the time.
Mhm.
And I mean, for the past 20 years, I've accumulated enough recording gear and enough knowledge to where I can actually record and it doesn't sound horrible. So all our albums I've recorded, and so it's not my first rodeo. And having your own studio, uh, it's nothing big, it's pretty small, but it allows you
Mhm.
time to go ahead and take the time to record and get it right. So it usually takes almost like 2 months just to get the drums done. And that still is, doing it on the weekends, doing it on the Saturdays and maybe a half day of Sunday. And then once the drums are done and edited, then I come in and lay down the guitars. And being a two piece, we don't have a bass player. So live, what I do is I split my signal, to a bass amp through electro harmonics pog, which kind of drops it down an octave. But when we're recording, I've typically picked up the bass and just laid down a bass track. But this time I just picked up my same guitar and just played it through the Pog because I'm like, you know what? That's how we sound live. Why not just
Mhm.
sound like that on recording? I still don't know if that was the greatest choice, but it's the choice I made. And I dig the sound. So I would say probably close to 3 months, honestly, to just wrap up the recording. Vocals are always last. Lyrics usually come way down the road, even after stuff's recorded. So 3 months, I would say. And then I'll also do mastering. So I play with mastering a lot. And then you can just drive yourself crazy with mixing and mastering, especially when it's your own material. It's hard to put it down
Mhm.
until it's done. So this time I was like, you know what? Screw this. Let's see what somebody else can do with mastering. So we sent it to Brad Boatwright, and he did a pretty good job. At first, I thought it sounded strange to me, but once I got over it, I was like, it's better than what I would have done. So I'm very happy with how it came out.
Well,
So
that's awesome. Was it like a big learning curve when you were learning how to record everything?
it always is. It's always something always goes wrong. Oh yeah, maybe I should plug in that microphone type situation. That's just part of it, to be honest with you. And I've kind of learned to just let things lie. If that's how it sounds, that's how it sounds kind of situation. I don't kill myself, for the most part, playing the riff absolutely perfect.
Mhm.
I feel like there should be some humanity in the music, especially in today's day and age where everything's just so hyper edited, locked on the grid. Everything almost sounds robotic. And we do record to a grid, but I just don't kill myself with the riffs and quantizing everything and kind of leave it as organic as you can in technical music without it sounding sloppy. I guess that's the best way I would approach it. But yeah, a big learning curve. Um, it's really the software, man. It's the gears, not so much, but then when you get into the software, it's just a whole different thing. And I'm pretty fluent with the tools I know how to use and that I use all the time.
Mhm.
I'd very rarely go outside my box of using new tools, new plugins and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think now I pretty much got the hang of it, and I can get us up and running in less than an hour and make sure nothing's goes horribly wrong. So
Hey, that's a plus right there.
yeah, yeah. So
So, do you have a favorite song on the new album?
that's a good question. You know, I mean, we're kind of all over the place. So different songs have different things that I like. I like the last song, Demon Legs, because it's the way I used to write all the time, more tech influenced, long form, like going 8 minutes. I mean, I used to write songs that were 12 minutes long with like 40 freaking riffs, and it was just like
Wow.
enough already. It's like I used to be hype in my previous projects, uh, hyper tech time change, math metal kind of situation. And that last song, Demon Legs, kind of touches on that a little bit more than we have lately. So I really like that song. But I also like Phil Collins was right. It's really just two riffs. There's nothing much to it. But it's got a nice melody to it. It gets stuck in your head. So it kind of has that other vibe of, hey, you don't have to be a technical asshole. You can just play something really easy, get over yourself, and just enjoy the music. So They have different. They're kind of opposite sides of the spectrum, but I really like what they have going on. And all the other songs in there are a mix of all that stuff. I mean, "Sunsets from Space" is a really cool song, I think, as well. That's kind of like in my older style of writing. It's no
Mhm.
vocals. I used to be in an instrumental band. If I didn't have to sing and could get by with it, I probably wouldn't. But I mean, yeah, I think those three songs are probably my favorite out on the album. They're all fun to play. So yeah.
So I have to ask, what was the idea behind Phil Collins? Like, what specifically, like, where
Oh,
did you come from?
yeah. Yeah, well, the riffs, I mean, really just kind of come from uh it's a good practice. I think even in anything else that you do, maybe even if you're a writer or something, uh, when Greg comes in here, uh I don't just say, hey, I have this riff. Let's play this riff now. What I do is I pick up my guitar and unintentionally, just start playing whatever comes out. Okay. So it's like a free form jam is what it turns into.
Mhm.
90% of the time it sounds like crap, but the 10th time you're like, man, that might be something we can hang on to. And then that's how the riffs develop. And that's how that riff developed. It was just something easy that we started playing. As far as the vocals, as I mentioned, vocals pretty much come last. Um, and usually what I do is I don't even sing words. I just sing noises. I don't know what you call it, scatting or something. I don't know how you would say that. But I get the melody in my head and I said, I'm not even saying words. It sounds ridiculous. And then later I come back and just throw some words on there. And usually it's really just to fit them to the music. And that one, I think I forget what the lyric is something in the air tonight or something like that. You know, and it kind of sounded like the Phil Collins lyric. So that's where it became Phil Collins was right. So I just stuck with that. It was real easy. And yeah, that's it. It's not a lot of lyrics to it. Not, I think it's pretty cool. It came out okay. Yeah.
I liked it. I think it was a video where it was played live.
Yeah, yeah. That was probably the best show I've played personally without screwing up totally. Which is like pretty obvious when you're a two piece because there's nobody else there playing guitar to cover up your mistakes. So I almost played that set perfect. But yeah, that song, we just had a GoPro running, and that's a bar that just recently started doing shows locally. And it turned out to be a good show. It was cool. It was real DIY vibe, which I love. Real grimy, real dirty, kind of like those shows I used to play when I was 19 and 20 in, somebody's house. So it
Mhm.
felt really good to get it out there, and it sounded good in there too. So yeah.
It really did. I really liked the way it was recorded, and I was like, this is really cool.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Yeah. Live, so we do incorporate synth in almost not every song, but a lot of our songs. So live, I have a Roland MIDI controller that I control with my foot. It's like a foot pedal, and
Mhm.
I control some crappy synth software that's on an old iPhone, and I plug that into the PA. So I'm able to play synth with my foot while we play, and I've gotten pretty used to it. So I can kind of play synth, sing, and play guitar at the same time. I think that's also probably why my riffs have gotten a little more simplistic because I can't play technical stuff while I'm trying to do stuff with the synth sometimes. If I'm just hitting one note, it's cool. But that may be why that song is only two riffs. And really this in my mind, the synth kind of carries it. The synth melody really lets it kind of just float along, and it gets the point
Right.
across. So
Okay. Well, that's really cool. Do you find like I know you mentioned like it's a lot simpler to have like a simpler riff, but
yeah.
um, I know you play a few different things in the band. Is it kind of hard to do all those things, like to sing, play guitar, and then keys and synth and
I mean, I can always work it out. It's not as complex as playing drums. I mean, you think about what a drummer's doing, and especially what Greg does, it's like crazy. So, it's not that bad. The bad part is the equipment. So you have one
Mhm.
guy setting up the guitar rig. I set up the bass rig. I set up my synth. I have this ridiculous pedal board to control it all. And if something goes wrong with that stuff, then everybody's just sitting around waiting on me to get it straight. And God
Right.
forbid it happens like mid song or something like that. Or if I've had a few drinks, then that's really bad. But, you know, luckily I haven't had too many malfunctions lately. I try to keep my gear in decent shape and I'm pretty good at setting it up now. And I got it to where if something gets bumped or knocked around, it's not the end of the world. So it's not hard, but the gear aspect and the potential for something to go horribly wrong is definitely increased, when it's one guy setting up all that stuff and trying to do it as fast as you can because you don't want to
Right.
be a burden on all the other bands and stuff like that. So I've gotten the hang of it. And I don't play synth all the time and I don't really sing that much. I really just use singing as an emphasis to the riff. I'm not really conveying a big message, when I sing for the most part. It's really an accompaniment, not to be the forefront, so to speak, of the song. So
Right. So is there any sort of idea behind the album name Pressure? Like where did that come from?
yeah. Well, uh, so as I mentioned, I kind of just scat riffs or scat vocals, like not even saying words, but just kind of stream of consciousness. Once the words start to fill in, every now and again, they start to make kind of a coherent idea. And it's kind of like you're just
Mhm.
tapping into what the hell is going on in your life. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
uh I got a lot, I had probably maybe had like a lot of stressful situations going on, like in my work world. Um, always feeling like, you know, you're always not to say that I'm broke or anything, but it's like, when you start to think about it, there's a lot of pressure involved with being an adult. I mean, I have a family I have to kind of support and I have to work, I have to do this stuff. And I'm not griping about it because, it's honestly great in America, but at the same time, uh, you can start to see some of the bad elements, of uh, people are always trying to sell you shit, or people are always trying to come get your money, like they want you to buy into something, or they're always going up on fees and stuff like that. And don't even get me started on politics. I'm not even into it, but I can't even turn the TV on when that stuff's in. So uh some of those lyrics are about being sold the American dream. And then when you get
Mhm.
a little bit older, you're like, wait a minute, you know, uh, you don't want to get in a debt prison or something like that. But there's a lot of pressure to being a grown up in America, I guess you could say. Um, so some of that does deal with that, and that's kind of where that album title came from. But also, the album art is really just a photo that my neighbor took while she was on vacation in Arkansas. And she was next to some hot springs or something, and that's just a rock formation. So the
Mhm.
album art kind of also tied into the title Pressure. So just the art and all that stuff, I was like, Pressure was a pretty good title. And I kind of like those one word titles or succinct titles, not a lot of text on the album cover, just a straight photo, or artwork or something. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit of that. I think it fit pretty well. So
Yeah, I think so too. I was actually really curious when I saw the album cover, so I'm kind of glad you touched on that.
yeah, it's a good photo. She's not getting paid for that, but
You can have the credit. That's fine. She'll take the
she was
street
happy
credit.
with the credit, and I gave her a record. Yeah.
So I know you said you don't have as much time to do like tours or anything, but do you have any like shows scheduled or any like projects coming up for the band?
No, we have a show at the end of September, a local show with some local bands, a band called IAC and a band called Father Rust. Father Russ has been around for a long time. I think it's how you pronounce it, IAK. It's IAK. Are some friends of mine from a previous band. So it should just be a good friend type show, and
Mhm.
where you can just kind of hang out with your friends and play music, which is always the best type of show. So other than that, nothing really on the books. We might try to make a trip to New Orleans or maybe Austin. But Greg is also in a band that does tour, and they tour worldwide. He's in a band called Brother Deej. He plays drums for Brother Deej. Just kind of like a folky type Southern rock. I think he calls it Scio Southern rock or something like that. It's
Okay.
pretty cool. It's more mainstream, and he's got a big following, so he's able to pay him. So when he tours, we're kind of not doing anything. I usually just kind of write a few things and wait till he gets back. So yeah.
Okay. So where do you find inspiration for your music?
Oh, oh yeah, that's a good question. Man, I know it sounds super cliche, but I really feel like, you know, I just tap into like whatever's in the freaking air, like whatever's in the universe. And
Hmm.
you write music, and I'm sure anybody who writes music and feels this way might feel this way, is that it almost feels like you're just kind of like regurgitating something that's just being channeled through you or something. It's like I don't ever sit down to intentionally write something. It just comes out. Okay. So I don't feel like I feel like it's just inspired by whatever the hell is in the freaking air and it's just being channeled through me. I guess that's how it goes. Um uh I think that's how those riffs come out. Now, those riffs are definitely influenced with all my influences, my musical influences growing up. We definitely don't sound like any band, 100%. At least I don't think we do. But I'm definitely tinged with a lot of influences that music I've been listening to since I was 19. So.
Okay. What music influenced you as I guess a young
Oh
adult?
yeah. Well, how old are you?
33.
Okay, so I'm 46. So when I was probably 18 or 19, what was that, like mid 1990s or something like that?
Yeah,
Um,
something like that.
I definitely remember being in high school, and my dad was a big record collector as well. Uh, and I remember he took me to Tower Records. It was in in Baton Rouge, which is about an hour away, and I got a Fugazi tape, and I forget, maybe it was Repeater or something like that. And then I got a Nirvana tape, and I don't remember which one that was. Maybe I don't remember which one it was. It wasn't the Nevermind. It was the one before that, maybe Bleach or something like that. And
Hmm.
I was like, wow, this is amazing. And at the time, I was also heavily into skateboarding, so you know, you would pop in the VHS tape and whatever was playing, that's what you listened to over and over again because you'd watch the skateboard videos over and over again. So those songs would get burned into your brain. So I think there was a band called Rocket from the Crypt back then that I really loved, and I was exposed to them through skateboarding. But also through skateboarding, I had friends that were also into much more alternative music that I didn't know existed, and
Hmm.
that was coming from a label called Amphetamine Reptile. And I don't know if you're familiar with them, but the Melvins had a bunch of albums out on there. Today is the Day's early albums, which I absolutely love. Willpower, it's one of the best albums ever, was on there, and a band called Hammerhead, which is one of my favorite bands. So not so much the Melvins, but that early Today is the Day, um, Hammerhead, uh, were early influences. And then Relapse started popping off with the Dillinger Escape Plan came out, and I was like, holy shit! Like, it just blew my mind. And then there was a band called Keelhaul that I still love and listen to. A band called Zini Geva, which is out of Japan. I think they don't have a bass. There's just two guitar players, and a band called Dazzling Killman. And if you took all those bands and wrapped them up, I would say that those were definitely my early influences back in the day. As I got older, I started, you know, I always thought people that Pink Floyd listened to Pink Floyd were kind of like, you know, hippie folks and stuff like that. But as I got older, I was like, man, it really is great music. You know, it's some of the best music ever. Sure, it's not technical, but the way that just to come out with that long ago was amazing. And I also kind of started getting back into King Crimson and Yes, and realizing that all those bands were really the forefathers of the bands that I was listening to that were just coming out, you know. So
Yeah.
so as I got older, I started embracing some of those older acts and I mean Mahavishnu Orchestra, I don't know if you've ever listened to them, but it's great stuff. And I really feel like my guitar playing kind of aligns with, I'm not as good obviously, but with aligns with the way John McLaughlin plays. I just like his style, and I feel like some kind of way our styles intersect in a weird way. And it was cool to discover him after I'd already kind of developed my style and have been like, oh, it kind of sounds like some stuff that I like to write, you know? So, but
Right.
really, he was probably coming around through the other bands that I'd listened to because he probably influenced them, you know? So, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm sure I'm missing some there, but that's pretty much the basics. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but I have trouble finding new music. I mean, I cannot listen to new bands. I try my best to go out and find new bands that I love, you know, but and every now and again I'll find a good one like Pinkish Black. I don't know if you ever listened to them, but I really like them a lot. Uh, but I'm almost like stuck in time listening to those bands that I listened to from like 19 to 25 or 26.
Mhm.
And it's hard for me to get past those bands, you know. I really think at that time music was changing so much. And I mean, there was nobody out there like Dillinger Escape Plan, you know. Now there's probably like a good 50 bands that if I would, you know, trying to kind of copy that type of playing. But back then to hear that stuff for the first time, it was like my mind was blown, you know. So I think that's why it's kind of burned into my psyche, you know. That's just the music I like now. So, but anyway, yeah.
Well, to be fair, there are so many bands out there. It's like hard to know who all of them are versus back then it's like not
Right.
as
Yeah. I try to I really do try. Like I run a lot, you know, so Saturday mornings I'll be like, I'm gonna find a new band on Bandcamp. I'm gonna do it, and I'll buy it, and I'll waste $10, you know. But every now and again I'll find one like Elder is somebody new that I've kind of opened up to. I started listening to some of their music. I think I bought an album from Conan or Conan
Mhm.
the other day, and it was pretty good. It's very, very heavy, not totally my thing, but I really dug it. It was good on the long run. So I still try to get out there. It's just they don't have the same effect as they did when I was younger. You know, it's not
Right.
like I'm hearing it for the first time, although I am. It's kind of that's a weird way to say it, but you know, that's how it is. So
So I do
not to
have
be
one
a downer.
there. Is there any message that you would like to give your fans about the album?
Not really. Just thanks for listening to it for sure. And thanks to you guys who have bought the vinyl. I mean, we're 100% DIY. Like I record the music, I write the music, me and Greg play the music, you know. We do the t-shirts, we pay to get the album put out. The only thing we didn't do this time was the mastering. And then of course the PR, there's no way I could do that myself. So we had to get Ear Split to help us, you know, and they've been doing a pretty cool job with that. So so I guess what I'm saying is just thanks for listening. And every little bit helps because I mean, when you're DIY, it's like, you know, it's really just a passion project. It's not like anybody's making money over here. It's just we just continue to do it for the fun of it, you know. And any album that gets bought, that just goes right back into the studio for something to help us make the next record, you know.
Well, that's awesome. I love DIY bands because it makes you appreciate them more, especially when you realize, okay, like they picked all this out, they did the t-shirts, everything.
I mean, we do everything, and it drives me crazy sometimes. Like I'm just completely burnt up, but at the end of the day, it's awesome to look back on it and say like, yeah, we did that shit, you know. I mean, we made the
Mhm.
video this time. I mean, we filmed it in our little studio. We got some GoPros. I dressed my daughter up in a mask and made her run down the street, you know. So I learned how to use the software. So I mean, we just did what we could with what we had, and I thought it came out pretty good. Um, so that's just the way we've been doing it, and that's probably the way we'll continue to do it. I'm not going to say if a label approached us and said, "Hey, you know, we can help you." I definitely wouldn't turn that down, but I always
Mhm.
feel like when those conversations starts, they want more than than we're willing to give up. I guess is what you could say. When you work on something so hard and it's your baby, it's hard to give it up to something like that. You know.
Right. Well, I do want to thank you for taking the time for doing this interview, and the
Oh, it's
album is,
fun.
and thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having us. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
All right. You too.